Good afternoon. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of Health special meeting for this Wednesday, August 24th, 2022. It's 2:02 p.m. My name is Ty Menser. I'm Chair of the Board of Health. Commissioner Carolina Mejia is present through Zoom, as well as Commissioner Gary Edwards and Council Member Robin Vasquez. And I'm going to call all of you guys board members because we're Board of Health members, and rather than tripping over everyone's title, I'm just going to refer to everyone as board members, so I hope that's okay. So we're all present and we're calling this meeting to order. We have the County Manager, Ramiro Chavez, Assistant County Manager, Robin Campbell, Clerk of the Board of Health, Jamie Caldwell, Interim Director of Public Health and Social Services, Kurt Harden, and our County Health Officer, Dr. Dimiana Abdulmalik. Okay, so first we need to approve the agenda and meeting minutes. Is there a motion regarding the proposed agenda?
I'm prepared to make a motion if you want.
Go ahead, sir.
I would move to approve the agenda for today, August 24th, 2022.
I'll second the motion.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the agenda for August 24th. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Menser? Sorry, calling is out of order.
Let's just go with board member.
Yep.
Okay. Board Member Menser?
Aye.
Board Member Mejia?
Aye.
Board Member Edwards?
Aye.
Board Member Vasquez?
Aye.
Motion carries. Agenda is approved. We have two sets of meeting minutes, and can we approve those in one swoop, or do we need separate?
You can approve with a single motion outlining the dates, absolutely, and obviously Councilmember Vasquez may have to recuse from the vote.
Okay, is there a motion regarding the meeting minutes from June 14th and August 2nd?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, I'm ready.
I would move to approve the meeting minutes from June 14th, 2022 and August 2nd, 2022.
Second.
That motion has been made and seconded regarding approval of board meeting minutes from June 14th and August 2nd. Any discussion on the motion?
No, sir.
Okay, I'll call for the vote.
Board Member Menser?
Aye.
Board Member Mejia?
Abstain.
Board Member Edwards?
Aye.
Board Member Vasquez?
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries, and we have approved minutes for June 14th and August 2nd. Next is opportunity for the public to address the Board of Health. I'm not going to go through the preliminary guidelines because no one is in the boardroom, and I don't believe anyone is on Zoom. So I've provided that opportunity, but we have no public comment today. Next is department item, and we have two items today. They're related. The goal is for the board to discuss the applications for the 3 citizen seats on the Board of Health and to outline a process to get those members seated and chosen. So starting with item 3, we just broke it into 2 pieces. We've got 7 applicants. I'll just kind of summarize where I think we're at, and then we can discuss how we want to proceed. So, and Kurt, you can, maybe you ought to address this, but I'll just say what I thought I saw, which was 7 applications, 3 buckets. There were folks that chose, potentially multiple buckets. If I doubled people up by bucket, there were potentially 6 people who thought they might be interested in bucket 1, 1 person in bucket 2, and 3 in bucket 3. But there's only 7 total folks. And so I guess the question will be, under the Washington Administrative Code that we're now operating under, we need to do interviews. We don't need to interview every single applicant, but we do need to make a judgment as to the number of applicants that need to be interviewed. So that's kind of, I think, the discussion point that item 3 will center around. Kurt, any introduction beyond that you'd like to provide?
Only concur with everything that you said, but the only other piece I would do this is the clerk Jamie Caldwell has reached out recently to the American Indian Health Commission to try to see where the nomination of the tribal member is in process, and we're awaiting a response from them. So we have followed up, and she has followed up trying to determine the status of the tribal representative.
Perfect. Jamie will let us all know as soon as we get a word on that. Okay, so I assume my seatmates have looked at these applications. The three previous, the county commissioners actually have seen most of these when we did a preliminary review of the last round, and then we had to go back out with some supplementary questions pursuant to new state law. And we got most of those applicants back with the supplementary questionnaire, but I think we did lose a couple and gained one. So I think we had 9, didn't we, to start? Yeah. So we lost 3 and gained 1. So it was a net loss of 2 applicants. But there's quality applicants here, I think, top to bottom. So I guess the question for my seatmates, and I'll just open it up, how do we feel about interviews? You know, I guess I'll say out of the gate that 5 of these folks, I would think we would want to interview at a minimum. We probably have capacity to do all of them. It depends, I guess, on the time we're going to allocate and how much time are on everybody's calendar. Before we get to that, do we have a proposed date? I know that's kind of part 2 of today's discussion, but it might help inform this discussion if we knew what we were looking at, a half day.
I think last we spoke that we were kind of tentatively looking around the September 2nd, but I don't think that a date has actually been solidified, and that it was going to be at least approximately a 4-hour block of time, but it was going to take coordination between everybody's schedules just to make sure that a particular date worked for everyone.
So a 4-hour block of time with half-hour slots could potentially include all 7, but we don't have to do that. So I'm going to open it up to my seatmates about thoughts that you folks might have about the number of interviews and who ought to be the list of interviewees. Commissioner Mejia is joining us. Board Member Mejia is joining us. Board Member Vasquez.
I think, from my perspective, it doesn't make sense to interview any fewer than 5. But if we can get a 4-hour block and interview all 7, I think that we should do that.
Okay. I will tell you that was kind of the way I was leaning myself. I did, you know, I kind of just said if the board wanted to only do 5, I kind of outlined who I thought I might, who I might cut from the list, but I think having only 7, it might make sense. But Commissioner Edwards, do you have perspective?
Well, I've got kind of a crazy idea because it looks like we've got some good applicants here. And, we had a presentation about that voting difference coming up here where it was proposed that, the first vote maybe that you took for a candidate that wasn't going to go anywhere, so it went down and tied to the second one. I was just wondering if, for the sake of expedience, people wouldn't be interested in trying to weed it down that way, possibly see who ends up on the bottom of the barrel, I guess, and eliminate those. But we've got good applicants, and I'm not against doing them all. That's kind of a harebrained idea I thought of is all.
Well, that's not a harebrained idea, and really, having more candidates is actually a better experiment for how that would work. But that's kind of like what we would do maybe after the interview, so it's kind of a supplementary discussion we could have.
Sure.
Board Member Mejia, any thoughts on how many to interview?
I'm okay with 5, and just reviewing the applications, I think, I guess I'll just lay it out there where my thought process is still on the same train as when we had this conversation, way back, and I understand the process has changed. But again, I'm still in support of the candidates that we had chosen beforehand, but I'm in favor of interviewing 5 candidates.
Opposition to 7? Is there 2 that you felt, did you feel strongly that 2 you know, I'm not trying to be disparaging of any applicant, because I think we can all say they're all pretty solid applicants.
They are all pretty solid
But are there
applicants.
two that you felt like it'd be obvious to you not to interview?
For me, not to interview them.
Yeah, if we're gonna do 5.
Well, I guess if we're going to do interviews, then Scott, Beth, Lynn, Mary Ellen, and I was surprised to see Dr. Wood on there. I was like, she was one of the ones that came in this last round.
Okay.
But, you know, in reviewing Carrie Dyer's application, I was kind of split between Carrie and Maria for the last spot, for the 5th spot.
For potential 5th interview spot,
Yeah.
and not Dr. Wood then?
No, not at this time.
Well, I mean, I'll lay my cards on the table, because my rankings were very similar. If I was going to interview 5, I would exclude Carrie and Dr. Wood.
Okay, so you would go with Maria?
I'd go with Maria and the other 4 that you indicated.
Okay.
If I
Assistant County
may,
Manager.
thank you. So I would just respectfully remind the board that in the WACs that our attorney presented to us in the last meeting, one of the criteria in the WAC, it specifically says interview all candidates unless you need to whittle them down. And I think 7 could be viewed as a manageable number, especially since there are fewer than 3. And what the board had talked about was up to 3 candidates per category. Since there are fewer than 3 in any given category, I would encourage the board to be mindful of the WACs and interview all of them.
I think that's fair. I think the way they break into buckets is a little bit of a mitigator there, because they're all stacked, they're heavily stacked into the provider bucket. There's only one person who even identifies as bucket 2, and we're proposing to interview that person. So it really comes down to, anyway, but it's a good point. It is a good point, and I think Assistant County Manager very accurately stated the language in the WAC that we reviewed. Commissioner, or Board Member Edwards.
Oh, okay, I put a little weight on what Robin brought up. I think there's something to that. I'm just gonna say off the top of my head, it sounds like we were getting close to Carrie Dyer was she getting towards being scratched? Am I getting that right?
Commissioner Mejia was a maybe, and I was a scratch. But again, only if the group decided to only do 5. But if we're going to do all 7, I definitely think she's worth interviewing. It's not like I felt like she was not an appropriate candidate. So if you're okay with 7, we already know Board Member Vasquez is. So can you live with that, Board Member Mejia?
I can.
Okay.
I guess I would suggest that the interviews be time limited. Because, it's 7 people and that does take time. So I even think 30 minutes, we would be here more than half a day, having discussion and, I don't know.
Okay, we'll get to the process. County Manager, I think you saw your hand.
I agree with Robin. I think the number of 7 is manageable. Aside from the requirements of the WAC, I think it will give you a little more depth in terms of assessing the potential candidates for your consideration. 30-minute interview is appropriate, and you do have an opening on Tuesday, September 6th, in the afternoon, where you can consider, since we canceled the Board of County Commissioners meeting, I believe the September 2nd is too It's too quick. It's just a week from Friday. And September 6th is not that much different, but at least give us a little more time to inform the candidates and develop a series of questions for the board members to review.
Okay. So this kind of will segue into our next item, which is kind of laying out the process. So if we're tentatively agreeing on interviewing all 7, 30-minute slots, go ahead, Board Member Vasquez.
I was going to ask if you needed a motion to make the decision to interview all 7, or if we're just making decisions without the need for motions.
I'll ask for a motion, but I just kind of want to like, they're kind of intertwined.
Talk
So
it
let's
out
kind
first.
let's kind of lay out what we're doing here. So 7 interviews, 30 minutes each, that's 3.5 hours worth, with a half an hour built in for whatever needed discussion, and we can make those 25 minutes of planned questions with a little bit of time for, okay, and September 6th, a date that could be workable, Board Member Vasquez, for you?
September 2nd is actually better for me. I have the whole afternoon, like I could block out from 11 until 5 to do all of the interviews.
County Manager, was there, you said you thought that was soon. That's because of what, just getting?
Because some of us will be traveling to Spokane on Wednesday and Thursday. And certainly we can work that out if Friday, the 2nd in the afternoon works the best. I think we just need to make sure that whatever decision is made today, we inform the candidates and we start working on our potential questions.
Yes. Okay, so September, I think we need to,
So, Board Member Menser, I think Board Member Edwards has his hand up. I didn't know if you saw it or not.
yes, Board Member Edwards.
I'm actually not available on the 2nd. And I do want to recognize that the county manager has a couple of good points there. I would hate to be where we're rushing into this, and I would like to have a good review of the questions and designating the process and everything for all parties concerned if we're going to do all 7. So the 2nd is just a bad day for me. I'm already scheduled. I'm in a wedding, so I'm going to just let it go at that.
Okay.
I can make the 6th work. I can rearrange some things.
I'm looking at the
Or
master
just
calendar for
cancel
the,
some things.
I appreciate that. I'm looking at the master calendar for the Board of County Commissioners. It looks like the 8th is also a possibility, if that works. No.
It's not. Well, unless you want to do it without me, but I will not be
Okay, so
available.
Yeah, you're out of the office.
Yeah.
Board Member Vasquez can make the 6th work, and it sounds like that's the only proposed date that we won't lose a member, board member. So let's go with that.
And if we can block the time, Board Member Vasquez from 1 to 5, that would be great. And then we'll detail the schedule as we talk to the applicants.
Board Member Edwards, you still have your hand up? Did you have something else?
Yeah, I'm a little slow on getting my hand down. I think that's going to work for me too on the 6th.
Okay. It does work better for me as well. I could have made the 2nd work, but the 6th is much better for me. So we'll go with the 6th from 1 to 5. We'll interview all 7 applicants. Now, when it comes to questions, I think that we're going to develop, I think Kurt was going to be tasked with kind of developing a template, but I wanted to give board members an opportunity to weigh in. You had a thought like, oh, please don't not ask this question, or any helpful suggestions that we might incorporate into our script. Board Member Mejia.
I have 2 questions. For the 6th, is the charging station briefing going to be rescheduled?
We'll reschedule that.
Okay. And then my second question about the interview process is, is this going to be live streamed?
My suggestion is not.
Not live streamed, but it has to
open
be
to
a
the
meeting
public,
that the public could be in here. We cannot exclude, even if another applicant wants to sit in here, we cannot exclude that. We've had that problem before.
And we'll set this room on a, table format to conduct the interviews.
And that's something that, I don't know if it's done in every interview, but in some, they send out the questions in advance, just so it's kind of moots that advantage that somebody might try to get. And, then everybody's on a level playing field. I don't know if we want to think about that.
I think it's a good idea to send out the questions in advance. It's
Okay.
rare that someone's going to need to make a snap decision without being able to think about it. And so it's not the thing that we need to measure in an interview is how well do you respond to surprises. We need people who are thoughtful in their responses to important questions on policy.
And we talked about, I kind of agree, we did talk about keeping the questions really simple, and we don't want these to drag on. We're really just trying to get a sense of the person's ability to communicate and maybe, communicate within a group context versus vetting any particular set of substantive criteria. Because this is an unusual situation for most citizens to be elevated to this type of board with a group of elected officials, and their ability to kind of, communicate in that context, I think will be important to the quality of what they can contribute. So, okay, County Manager.
Just a logistical question. I would assume that you will prefer to conduct these interviews in person.
Well, for me, I'm sorry, Board Member Menser, I just spoke out of turn.
Go ahead.
But for me, if someone's not available to join us in person, I would be more than willing to have them over Zoom. I know probably on a Tuesday afternoon, Councilmember Vasquez is already having probably to take time off. And if someone can not make the drive all the way over here because of work, I wouldn't want them to inconvenience them, I guess would be the word. So I feel Zoom should be offered as an option, but that's just how I feel.
Any disagreement with that approach, Board Member Vasquez?
No, I think it's a good idea to allow applicants the option to use Zoom, but I think I can be present in person.
Yeah, I agree. I would say that we invite, it's an in-person interview, but we will accommodate Zoom if that's their preference.
I'm also with you on that.
Okay, very good. Consensus on that. And anybody have a particular question that they would like to suggest be asked in this fairly short group of 5 or 6 questions? Yeah.
I have a suggestion.
Board Member Mejia.
I would like to know, so, each one specified kind of like where they would fit in, right? Like either as a provider and I would want to know, why they think they fit in that bucket or why they think they're best fit for that bucket. And to kind of explain through that, what their thought process was on that. And of course, how they think their experience, both lived and, professional experience, will benefit the Board of Health.
Okay. Dr. Abdulmalik, you're kind of quiet over there. I'm going to put you on the spot. Is there a good question that you think you'd like to see asked?
I always one of the things that I think would be interesting would be to ask a little bit about what folks hopes are for the overall health and well-being of folks that work, live, learn, and play here in Thurston County over time.
Can you repeat the beginning of that? I didn't quite get it. Their hopes for what?
so, you know, just thinking about what their priorities, or not priorities, but what they're when they're looking. Sorry, it's taking me a moment to articulate this. But I think one of the questions that I think is a good one is, you know, as we look at Thurston County in the future, what does success you know, look like as a Board of Health participant?
Okay. Board Member Edwards.
As we move forward, is there any reason, are we particularly waiting until we make these appointments before we select the officers of the new Board of Health, or any time frame that's been designated in the RCW or anything, or a number of people there?
Kurt, you've got your hand up and you might have the answer to that question, so I'm going to call on you.
It is my understanding that it's the Board of Health's decision when you want to choose the officers, is provided you have a quorum present in order to formally choose your officers. I believe discussion in the past has been to have the other members selected so that everybody would have a process to go through to select the members. But it's the Board of Health, as long as you have a quorum present and it's one of your formal meetings. The other piece I was going to have is, I know there's a lot of good dialogue right now and questions. I was going to suggest if board members want to also send questions to me, I could be the clearinghouse, compile questions and send them all out to the board members as well, so they can look at everybody's questions, because in case somebody thinks of another question tomorrow or Thursday, tomorrow's Thursday, Thursday or Friday, as long as they could get the questions to me by close of business on Friday, then I can ship them out, or put them together, package them together, and get them all out to the board members for consideration.
Okay.
That looks good. Excuse me.
Go ahead, Board Member Edwards.
What I was wondering about was Kurt said something there that piqued my interest, and that was, Kurt, you said that we could make that selection as long as we had a quorum at a normal meeting. And I see this is a special meeting. Yeah. So does that disqualify us from making nominations or voting on new officers?
No, my mistake. Formal meeting, I should say formal meeting where you have a board process. So I think this constitutes a formal meeting.
Okay. I mean, it's just my feeling that we kind of run a more efficient ship when we know who's charged, who's doing what. And I kind of like, I'm prepared to make a nomination of Commissioner Menzer if he'd accept that.
So there's a couple of procedural clarifications in here.
Okay.
First of all, the clarification that I'd like to make is after the interviews, the Board of Health provide recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners for appointment. The Board of Health will not be in the position to appoint those individuals. Secondly, as you work through this process, this is a special meeting of the Board of Health, and you need to stick to your agenda items because you cannot deviate from those agenda items during the special meeting.
Okay.
So,
but we could do it. We could do it at the next meeting, for example, if it were on the agenda.
yes, absolutely.
And that would be a discussion point for the board, whether there'd be a value in waiting or not, but we wouldn't be limited to waiting if we didn't want to.
You're with, I believe here, the item number 3A that you have is what you're discussing right now, the applications, and that's where you're, so I don't think there is a motion needed. I believe that is a conversation the board has, and you're already discussing item 4, which is the process itself, the date, the times, and the questionnaire. I think that fits within the preview. So it's just a reminder of some of the procedural elements you need to consider.
Board Member Vasquez.
This has to do more with logistics of the interviews, if we're going to get them scheduled on the 6th. One of the best practices that I try to employ when I do interviews in my day job with the state of Washington is to avoid talking about an applicant or candidate immediately after the interview before we have seen and heard from all applicants, just because you can anchor your perceptions about particular folks. So I would propose that as we do interviews, we avoid ranking or discussing the applicants that we hear from first until we have heard from all of the applicants, and then we have a fair sort of threshold to compare them all because we've heard from all of them.
Okay. I'm writing that
Sounds
down.
like a good suggestion.
I'm
Yeah.
okay with that too.
Okay, so that makes some sense to me, so we'll adopt that. And that will actually fit into this very compressed, kind of rapid fire timeline we're doing anyway, so that'll work. Okay, so Kurt, if anybody thinks of a question in the next couple of days, email it to Kurt, and he will kind of compile what we've got, and I think he's looking around at, other jurisdictions as well. And I don't have anything really that I haven't put a lot of thought into it. Maybe I will. I will, just because I was going to be working with him on kind of the suggestions, I think, finalizing the script. So, but any last question areas that you want to throw out there today? Somebody thought of. Not from any quarter, including staff, county health officer. Okay. Okay, and then we agree to send them out in advance. And so, Kurt, when do you think we would send out the, I'm just looking at my calendar. If the interviews are on the 6th, on a Tuesday, that gives us what, a week? That gives us a little less than 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks from yesterday.
Yeah, it's going to be a special meeting, so we need to publish the special meeting notifications, but no later than next Thursday or Friday, 24 hours in advance. Consider there's a holiday on that weekend. Just a reminder, they also will need to post the schedule of the individuals going to be interviewed as part of the agenda, as well as the questions, because that's a piece of document that you're going to be utilizing on the special meeting. So in addition to sending to the candidates, we need to publish those questions.
So would that be required even if we weren't going to send them out to them in advance?
So I think sending them in advance is a good,
But you're saying because we're sending them in advance, then we should put them on the...
Well, it's a piece of document that you're going to be discussing it during the special meeting. And as we have...
I'm just saying, what if we had wanted to keep the questions private? What if as the hypothetical board member Vasquez had, what if part of this job required you to think quick on your feet and we didn't want to disclose the questions? Would we have to put it out there in advance?
And
Just curious.
that's a difficult conversation to have. And we had a conversation whether you can have closed doors interviews and just need to get open to the public, and the public needs to understand what the business of the Board of Health is going to be conducting.
Okay, well, it's a moot point because we're going to send them out in advance, so we'll have it there for the public to see as well. And okay, what else will the board members then need to address? Or Kurt, do you have, what else do we need to either accomplish today or accomplish between now and the 6th of September vis-a-vis the rest of the board?
So if I could ask if it was this Friday would be sufficient time for the board members to submit to me their questions, their potential questions that they want for consideration. I'll collect those over the weekend, send them out to all the board members so they can review them. And then by Wednesday, if we could have the final set of questions. So because I think the clerk, Jamie, is going to need to be able to publish that with the agenda on Thursday, if I understand correctly, because of Labor Day weekend.
Right.
That sounds like a good process.
Pretty good. Board member Edwards.
Yes. How restricted are we going to be on asking questions outside of those designated questions if we're going to notify the applicants of the questions? I'm just wondering, are we going to be somewhat restricted then on what we can do? And I see Kurt's got his hand up.
Okay, go ahead.
So,
Kurt.
so out of the WAC, it says the WAC 246-90020, subparagraph 6 says the interview shall consist of a standard set of questions and may include follow-up questions if necessary to understand the response to a standard. And that's directly out of the WAC.
Okay.
Okay, well, you know, so it really needs to be the exact same set to each person. Because when Board Member Mejia mentioned this question about why did you choose that bucket, I really want to know, that's a great question as to bucket 2. I don't really need to know that as to bucket 1 if they're a healthcare practitioner. I know why they picked that bucket, but it sounds like hopefully they'll just give a short, succinct answer and we'll move along so we can keep the questions the same. Robin, did you have your hand up?
Just curious, with only a half an hour for the interview, how many questions are really reasonable?
5?
Yeah, 5 or 6 at most.
Yeah.
Yep, we're aware of that.
So that will be the task. Maybe I can help you on dwindling down those questions, Kurt.
Okay.
Okay, very good. So this was simpler than we thought because we have fewer applicants than we were hopeful for. So this was a silver lining, I guess, but go ahead, Kurt.
One quick comment. When you send me information next week, you're going to get an out of office on my email. Just ignore that because I'll be at the conference, et cetera, and I'll be continuing to work this. So just ignore my out of office email.
And you're talking about the Board of Health orientation?
Yes.
And Ramiro will be there and I will be there. Anyone else? Board Member Vasquez will be there.
And Jamie, the clerk of the board, will be attending.
Okay, well, we're all going to learn a lot of, hopefully, I'm hoping it's a really good presentation because this is all new for us. Okay. Well, does that conclude business? Kurt, did we get where you needed us to get to?
I believe so. Anybody else have any clarifying questions or comments regarding the process for the interviews?
I see Board Member Vasquez shaking her head. I can't see Board Member Edwards. You good?
No, I'm good.
Okay, very good. With that, we're adjourned.